Hey guys, what's going on? My name's Leighton. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to go over what many of you refer to as the three bucket strategy. I'm sure you've all heard of it before. Basically, what it is a short-term bucket of money, a mid-term bucket of money, and a longer-term bucket of money for retirement. Now, I won't quite be looking at it through the traditional lens because, I'm not 65 or 60 or a typical retirement age. I am quite young, and if you're not familiar with my other videos, I've quit my job, but my wife is still working, and I'm still very much open to going back to work at some point in the future, whether that's, 6 months from now, 2 years from now. I'm not really sure. I'm just going to enjoy my time parenting for the time being and see what comes my way. But so we're not mapped out with the traditional sense of the three buckets. We don't have 25 times expenses or 30 times expenses or whatever kind of milestone you're looking for in most retirement videos. But I'll show you how we lined our finances up in preparation for the move that we made, which is, taking an early retirement on my end while my wife still loves her job and being able to be a stay-at-home father for a period of time that's, undetermined at this point. So I'll get right into it. Our short-term bucket, we have this broken up into a couple different categories, and I'll explain. So first things first is like our checking account. And what we did there was we put 2 years of expenses. I know that seems like a lot, but it's not actually that much money because my wife is still working. So what this 2 years expenses is with my wife working and us just pulling a little bit extra out here and there to, help for months when we're doing a vacation or just slowly bleed that money as opposed to we're not actually living off of that money full time. It's like the wife is still working. This is our supplementing money. So we had 2 years there. The next is our non-registered investing accounts. So that is broken up again. We have a 1 year cash supply in cash.to that most Canadians will be familiar with. And that's basically just high interest savings accounts. So at one point in time, we were getting about 5% on that. Then it's dropped down to about 4%. It will continue to drop as interest rates come down. I'm hoping it remains at least a few percent. And if it doesn't, well, we'll probably have to look at something else to do with that. But that's not 1 year expenses with my wife working. That's 1 year's expenses if my wife were laid off or fired or whatever were to happen. That's like an emergency fund, like a true 1 year of family expenses. And I should put a note in here that when I say family expenses, I mean if nothing changes. Like that's just what our bills are today. We have one kid doing half days in school. We keep our second kid in daycare at least part time because we want him to remain socialized and keep in his routine too. Like we don't want him to suffer. So yeah, we do have some expenses that we could definitely cut back on, as well as just our general lifestyle. Like we're basically just living life as though I were still working. We haven't cut back on a lot. So these numbers are probably like the term that the money would last is probably actually a little bit shorter. That like what I'm saying is shorter than it actually would in reality because we could cut back on some of those things fairly easily. The rest of the non-registered account is in XEQT, and I mentioned that before. It's basically just the whole world, heavy in North America. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, look up XEQT. As always, this isn't finance advice in terms of I'm not telling you what to invest in. Do what's best for you. This is just what works for us. So yeah, we've got about another 2 years in that bucket. So in total, that brings our what I would consider near-term dollars, non-registered cash, non-registered investments, and what's pre-existing. We've got about 3 years on the sidelines plus 2 years if my wife is working. So I hope that makes sense. If you need any clarification, feel free to comment. Then what I would consider our medium-term bucket, I don't know if everyone would do this, but if I'm still not working and we needed money and all of this had run out somehow, like, my wife lost her job and things had gotten bad and I, for some reason, couldn't go back to work and whatever, the next bucket I would pull from would be my RRSP actually. And I know that may catch some people by surprise, but if you're pulling, a lower dollar value out of your RSPs in years when you're not working, the tax hit really isn't that bad. So that would be the path we would go. Instead, I would like leave the TFSA alone to continue compounding, and I would start pulling from my RRSP. And in that, I've got about 3 years expenses. So now we're up to, roughly 3 years in the non-registered in our short term, 3 years in our medium term. And then what I consider our long-term bucket is my TFSA and pensions. So that put together, I mentioned in my previous video that I just coincidentally am about a quarter in each bucket or in each account type, just completely randomly, like it's just the way accumulation happened. So that leaves me with about 3 years in the TFSA and 3 years in the pension fund. So again, if these numbers are if I wasn't working, if my wife wasn't working, if they hadn't grown in the time we were drawing down all these other accounts and things like that. So it leaves us with about 6 years in what I would consider long-term investments that we don't want to be touching anytime soon. These are my accounts that I would really like to last and continue compounding until I'm 65. So I'm 35 now. These are accounts that I don't want to touch for, at least 25 years probably. So yeah, that's where we're at currently. As I mentioned, just completely randomly in a sense. Like we were maxing out our RSP, maxing out TFSA, doing automatic contributions to pensions, and then whatever was left putting into non-registered. And it just so happened to work out in once I was done, it was 25%, 25%, 25%, 25%. It was not the goal. It just happened to be that way. So yeah, that's how we've structured things in our life in terms of me getting ready to quit the workforce. We figured that that was ample amount. I know if you tally that all up, now don't hold me to these numbers because these are rough, but that tallies up to somewhere around, I think, 13 years expenses of what we have saved up. So it's not the 25 or 30 times rule that you would see in other videos because I'm young, because I'm open to going back to work, because my wife is still working. So there's definitely some, the numbers wouldn't look fantastic if we were both pulling the plug and truly retiring right now. And that is why my wife is still working and I'm still open to going back to work. But it's how we set ourselves up in order for me to be able to pull the plug and become a stay-at-home father for the foreseeable future. So anyways, if you're thinking about doing something similar to this, like one of the spouses are going to be a stay-at-home parent, please let me know what you're doing to prepare for it. And yeah, I'd be eager to know in the comments if you've structured yourself similarly, or how much cash did you set aside? What sort of things did you do in preparation? Anyways, that's it for today. So let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Thanks.